You know, a lot of times when we hear on the news about a police brutality situation, people immediately jump to believe the alleged victim, especially if the alleged victim happens to be a black person. This is because, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, a long history of systemic structures and structural systemicisms that systemically, structurally, and structurally sound in a systemic way disadvantage minorities and make the police actually come from evil white races. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a theory out there, there's something that people say about police departments in this country actually coming from slave patrols. Now, there's actually no evidence of this. In fact, we find the opposite when we look into the information. Departments actually started in the North, and in the South during Reconstruction, the Union actually operated as the police and then helped set up departments. So the idea that they would be set up as slave patrols makes no sense when most of them were set up after the abolition of slavery by Northern soldiers who fought against the slave states. But whatever, you know, it's said a lot by people that actually police comes from slavery. I don't know if you know that. Now, even if you're intelligent and you don't buy into the long history, therefore kind of argumentation, it's also sometimes very hard to figure out what's going on when you have images of people who look like they were injured when we know for a fact they came from a police encounter. And a perfect example is the case that we're going to talk about today, where this person goes on the local news, talks about how the police significantly hurt him. Obviously, there is some serious damage in his face, so it would lead you to believe that maybe possibly something happened in regard to the law enforcement. I mean, after all, he's sitting next to an attorney, and it seems rather odd for an attorney to be retained in order to sue the police over an issue like this if there was absolutely nothing to it. Now, of course, there is nothing to it. It's ridiculous and absurd, and the attorney is made to look like a fool by this very local news segment, but we gotta get into that a little bit later. Before we do that, I just want to thank everybody who signed up over on my website at actualjusticewarrior.com/join. This one is for you guys.
Like my pain, like a 10, like a 9 or 10.
Samuel McCray says Detroit police officers did this.
Just pick me up off the ground, slam me.
McCray and his attorney, Maurice Davis, told Fox 2 Thursday it happened 2 days before at this gas station at Telegraph and 7 Mile.
So this is the claim. They go to the local news. They say, look, they picked him up and viciously and violently body slammed him, plus a bunch of other injuries, and that is what resulted in his face looking like that. And honestly, at this moment, I'm feeling quite sympathetic. My heart is basically broken because I know about the evil white racists and the evil white racism and how evil white racism, evil white racism, evil white racisms.
Cops called there for a fight between McCray and another guy, but the attorney says that fight did not cause the injuries.
But none of the scars that you see were from any other individual attacking him. Everything that you see visibly on his face comes as a result of what the officers did to him.
Now it's a little bit suspicious because what we end up finding out is that the police were called specifically on McCray. And by the way, I had to block out entirely the video of the fight. It was pretty bad because of YouTube's terms of service, but the attorney assures us, he tells us to our faces on the local news that none of the injuries sustained by McCray were due to that fight. It was all the police, and this guy, as soon as them police officers showed up, immediately surrendered, turned down his aggression, got himself under control, even though, of course, the police were called due to a fight, due to the fact that McCray had absolutely no control over his actions. But again, we were told by the attorney that none of these injuries, 0% of them, what you see on his face, had to do with the fight. It was all from the police, because I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. The police, full of evil white racists. And you know what evil white racists do? Evil white racism.
Our officers did nothing wrong in this instance. Absolutely nothing wrong.
And in this case, Chief James White came with receipts. Start with this one, a still image from officer body-worn cameras that show how McCray's face looked right when officers arrived.
So I love the fact that this officer is not messing around. He's not playing games. He says, listen, our officers did nothing wrong, and I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to show you the body cam footage and the dash cam footage of the moment that we arrived on the scene for this case, so you can see it for yourself. And then they show us that, and guess what? McCray has every single injury that he is going to the local news with, saying that none of them came from the fight, they all came from the police officers, right there immediately, plain as day. This guy is a scammer, and his lawyer, by the way, actually never saw this tape, so he was completely fooled and embarrassed by this.
The moment the officers arrive, you can see that the complainant has already been assaulted.
For 10 minutes.
For 10 minutes, and violently assaulted.
A sample of that fight here, even a kick to the face by McCrae's sister's boyfriend. The chief says McCrae antagonizes on and off for about 10 minutes before officers are called.
Now again, I blocked off this video. It is being showed by the local news, and the local news video is not age restricted like my video would be age restricted if I showed you this, but you could see that McCrae is going after his sister's boyfriend over and over and over again, and his sister's boyfriend is not having it. He's kicking him in the head, he's punching him in the face while he's down. It is truly a violent encounter, and according to the surveillance video as presented by the police, this lasted 10 minutes. 10 minutes of McCrae trying to antagonize and losing the fight to his sister's boyfriend again and again and again, only to get what's coming to him, and then to turn around and pretend that he didn't get any of that during the fight. It all came from the police officers because the police are evil, white, and racist. And again, this is totally trashy. Don't get into a fight with your sister's boyfriend in a gas station. Have it go on for 10 minutes to the point where people have to call the police. Put your shirt on. I don't know why you're not wearing a shirt. Taking off your shirt obviously did not make you a better fighter. And yeah, if you get beat up, if you get beat down, and then the police show up, and then they end up making some arrests, doing some detainments, don't try to turn it around on the police.
So when the officers arrive, they are witnessing an assault. That's an arrestable offense, right? That's at the very least, it's an A and B in the officer's presence, which they can arrest for immediately.
And that right there is why Chief says they attempted to cuff McCrae.
Also, one of the things that I find hilarious is that McCrae, when the officers pull up, sirens blazing, makes a look at the officers. The other people in the fight, not as dumb as him, decide that they're going to go back in the car and try to calm the situation down, goes and swings at somebody in the SUV in plain view of the police officers. So he's still antagonizing, he's still fighting when the officers show up. But remember, the violent ones here are supposedly, allegedly, theoretically, hypothetically, and possibly metaphorically the police officers. They're the ones who are supposedly the ones who injured him, even though we see some video of his face from moments after the police showed up, before any contact is made, that shows that he has all those bruises already before the cops even got there.
Even calling this a textbook arrest, lowering him to the ground as he actively resisted, then again on his stomach, but his face doesn't hit the ground. Chief says doesn't quite match the dramatic body slam McCrae and his attorney described.
Now, I showed you that part of the video because it's hyper relevant, because them supposedly sitting him down while he's struggling with them after they just saw him assault somebody in the vehicle is what he described as the body slam. And again, the full video is in the link in the description, the local news report, and they show you all the key moments. That is in no way, shape, or form a body slam, but more importantly, that non-body slam never resulted in any contact with his face. Now, it would be one thing if this guy was fighting the officers, and the officers fought him back, and then we had some ambiguity here, but when you watch the video, surveillance video, dash cam, body cam, what you figure out is that no officer made any contact with his face. We can see his face has the injuries from the jump when the officers show up there, and we can see through the video of the fight him getting the injuries to the face by being kicked in the face by his sister's boyfriend and punched in the face by his sister's boyfriend repeatedly, time and time again. So McCrae has no case here. These videos completely exonerate the officers, prove him guilty, and the fact that he filed a frivolous lawsuit just goes to show you that what is alleged on paper is often not factual. What is alleged on paper are allegations, and just like any allegations, they have to be proven to be true in a court of law or through a settlement. But I just want you to think about this, because a lot of departments have a policy where they settle cases immediately if they get some press attention. They don't try to go through the court proceedings because they think it costs more in order to go through the court proceedings rather than to just pay these people off. So in a lot of municipalities in this country, this kind of case, and maybe not with this clear and obvious evidence, would get settled and this person would receive money even though no money was due. And then a bunch of left-wing activists who set up the government, who institute these policies of always settling, would use that against the police department as a way to say that we need to cut their funding because look at how much money they're paying out in abuse cases. And by the way, I know this might sound crazy to you guys, but if this case was filed, it could still result in a calculated decision to pay this guy out some money, even though no money is objectively due.
For, an attorney to use this circumstance and to try to capitalize on, the emotions of a community, it's just improper. I think it's shameful. I really do.
Now, I 100% agree with this officer that the attorney trying to use this gin up hysteria and make the case that this was an abusive situation, especially in our current climate where people are very anti-cop, people profit off of selling you this narrative of black victimization at the hands of law enforcement is in fact disgusting. But I just want to point out what the local news is going to point out, which is apparently this attorney met with the client, thought he had some serious injuries, didn't realize that the video showed the opposite at this point, and never ultimately ended up filing this case.
No one ended up getting charged here. Now that attorney, Maurice Davis, says he never saw this video and he hasn't formally filed suit. It'll be interesting to see if he ends up filing after the video we just showed you.
So for me, while certain attorneys like Benjamin Crump are absolutely scummy because they take up cases and they explicitly go out of their way to lie about them, what this attorney did was meet with the client. The client pitched him what happened. He went through the process of putting together an intent to sue letter, essentially, brought the case to the media, and then ultimately was proven wrong. And we will be able to determine the level of character, honesty, and integrity of this attorney based on the fact of whether or not he continues to take on this case, whether he files it anyway, or whether or not he says to his client, listen, you have no case here. You're ridiculous and absurd. You did this to yourself. Don't try to fight your sister's boyfriend at a gas station. And honestly, count your blessings that the officers who saw you attempt an assault right when they showed up have 10 minutes of you assaulting somebody and getting into a fight, losing the fight, by the way, didn't bother to charge you with assault. They kind of cut you a break, and this is how you react to this. Now, I know some people out there are going to point out that systemic systems and structures and structural systems that led McRae to do this, and honestly, he was just trying to fight his sister's boyfriend for bread for his family. He's basically Aladdin when you think about it, but I don't buy that narrative. I think McRae got drunk, he got into a fight, it escalated, he kept getting his butt handed to him, as you could see in the video, and then he got really mad, really upset, and thought, hey, you know what? This might be an opportunity for me to become a race grifter, because, when something happens to you from within your own community, but you could blame police or white people or both, that could get you money, therefore, that's what he wanted to go with. As for his attorney, I actually think he was scammed in this regard. I think his attorney's time was in fact wasted, but maybe he should have tried to, get this footage prior to going to the news and making a fool of himself and saying plain as day that none of McRae's injuries came from the fight and they actually came from the police. Because I don't know if you know this, I don't know if you're aware of this, I don't know if you're familiar with this concept. Supposedly the police are a bunch of evil white racists. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. If you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about yet another Black Lives Matter scammer. That's right, I'm attaching the organization to him. Till next time.